Well, welcome back. Something very exciting has happened. Buoyed with the success of my airboat, you know what Andy's like. He's got on his computer and he sent me something down all the way from Leeds in the UK. I love it when a box turns up. Oh. This, ladies and gentlemen, let me show you. Rudder, battery clamp, fin, case for your RX. These are the rudder posts. Oh, look at that. Cool. Shiny. Got to thank Andy very much because actually he's done it in the colours for my granddaughters. Right, honest, I heard what was said at the back of the room there. This is for my granddaughters. Right, let's crack on, let's build it. Right, this is straight hot off of Andy's 3D printer. We've got just this little bit of flash just to remove here and around here. You can I'm just going to use a sharp knife, and then you might, if you want to, you can just clean it up with some sandpaper afterwards. Let me just clean these up, these two bits here. I'm going to clean these up. This, don't cut off. This bit is an integral part, so it's just this very thin bit here. So I'm just using a very sharp knife, and I've got my cutting board, and this is the only bit of sanding or cutting I think we need to do. And anyway, I'll just sort this out and I'll get back to you. Right, next thing we're going to do is, before we actually fit the rudder and the trim system, or trim wing, servo, I highly recommend the Angelwing's own 5-gram servo. That's specifically designed to fit in here, but you do have to take the lugs off. So just take the lugs off, like I've done that side, just take the lugs off, and then that's going to fit down inside there like so. You can keep one lug on if you fancy, but I think for neatness and the fact that where you want the battery to fit, you're going to need to take both lugs off. Right, so servo, lugs cut off. The servo wire is going to run through the hull, just through this little loop here. So what I'm going to do is I am just going to gently lift the tags. Let me show you. If you can see that, I'm just going to gently lift those tags. If you can, make a note of the orientation, but I'm just going to lift these little tags out. I'm going to pull the wires out, and then I'm going to feed it to this hole that I've just showed you. So we're going to glue the servo in. You'll also notice there is a small hole here that you've put the servo lead through. The next thing we're going to do, make sure you've got this little hole orientated properly. That's going to pop in there like so. So you want the hole, this is the battery holder, and that hole matches, that hole matches there, look. It goes through there. That's going to be for the speed controller. And then, I'm going to I'm going to hot glue this in as I'm doing the servo as well. so we've got our battery tray and our servo just whacked in, and I have just put a little bit of sealant round the, I have put just a little bit of hot glue just around the hole, just as a little bit of a seal. Now, next thing is motor. I mean, look, he's even put the holes ready for the motor, and they've recessed it for the heads to go in. The motor is, they're all going to be on the website. So if you go to Angelwingdesigns.co.uk, there's a page on Andy's website, and he'll list all the bits. But if you're just watching this, this is an FPV motor. It's a King 2 1404 3800 kV. But it's all going to be listed. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to bang this bad boy onto there, because the other thing we're then going to do is thread the wires back through into this container on the should I start saying port and starboard instead of left and right? So I have added the motor. Now, top tip, there are two sets of screws in the motor kit. The long ones are for the motor. You need two of the shorter ones to lock the prop in place. My advice is, if you're going to have to do some soldering, which I will do, I've only temporarily, I've not whacked my screws for the motor up at the moment, because what I want to do is it's tight but not over tight, because I just want to check the polarity with the batteries with the speed controller. So the speed controller, this is the one we're using. Again, it's going to be on the Angelwingdesigns website. There it is. It is a, it actually don't say a lot actually. Let me show you that. Basically it's a Beck. The involved voltage is 2 to 3 cells, and it weighs 11 grams. That's all it tells me. But if you want them, they're going to be on the Angelwings website. So I am now going to I've got a low powered battery. I might change this connector, but I've got a low powered battery, and what I want to try and do is make sure I've just got the polarity right, and then these will be joined to the motor. So these are going to be joined to these, and that's what I'm saying. If you might find it's better to actually just unscrew the motor and then just let it sit very tight at the back here, and that'll give you plenty of working room. But just remember, long screws for the motor, short screws for the prop. Right, airboat update. Now, I fed my wire, let me show you. I fed my wires through here from the motor to the speed control and joined them up, and I've also fed the wire through the hull. Yeah, check me with nautical terms. And this is the plug for the NiCad, oh sorry, for the LiPo. So I've got my prop on round the right way. Make sure, doubly check that you've checked that the screws in your motor housing are fast, and that the two screws in the propeller are actually on properly. Do not do any of that with it connected to a battery, because the moment you connect a battery, this thing is live. And even if you've got your transmitter on, yeah, you're fine. You've only got to knock the transmitter over, or I've even had the odd radio control where the servos move for no reason. I'm nowhere near the transmitter. So please, 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 even this tiny little thing will take fingers off. So it's all wired up. Now, top tip, when I'm happy and I've packed everything, I'm just going to seal the end of here where the motors come out, and also motor wires go in, and where the motor wires come out into the receiver box. This is the receiver box here. I'm just going to add a little bit of hot glue just to make it nice and watertight, and particularly make sure that this one here, where your LiPo is going to be connected there, make sure that you actually put a fair bit of hot glue either end just to get that nice and sealed. Now let me show you. So the procedure is always transmitter on. Check that your throttle is in the off position, and I think a lot of people these days are using various different transmitters. You will have a warning. So a classic example is I switch mine on, I got a throttle warning to say that my throttle is stuck full open. So transmitter on first, making sure that my hands are clear. Let me show you. So all I'm going to do now, I'm just trying, I've got a 550 11.1 volt triple pack in there. I'm just going to connect this up, making sure my hands and the wires are clear. It's going to do some bleeps. There we go, it's all ready. Now, good little check first is I'm just going to check my servo's not connected, but I'm just going to check my servo. Top tip while you're doing this, make sure that your servo is centered. And then the other thing now is I am just going to make sure that I've got the draft is going backwards, not this way. So in other words, we want the thrust from the propeller going that way. And oh, she's going to shift. So now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to disconnect. Always disconnect the plane or boat first. That is now safe. Then you switch your transmitter off. Don't switch your transmitter off first, then the boat or the plane, because that's likely to just go off on one if it wants to. So the next thing I'm going to do now is I am just going to center my control horn here on the servo, and then what we're going to do is we are going to add the rudder, which I'm going to talk to you. So we've got the rudder, and we've also got this sort of power fin thing that we're going to put on here. Okay, next thing, rudder. So you're going to need your rudder that you've obviously cleaned and sanded up, and you're going to want 2 of these and 2 of these, and let me show you where they go. This little end post for your rudder, it's got this screw which screws into it. It goes in halfway, and then the idea is I fitted one already here, and then the other one screws into here like so. Just be gentle and don't over tighten it. You don't need to use any thread lock, so that is just going to thread onto there like so. So that's the 2. So that one, that one. Now the next thing is, so these plastic threaded nuts, plastic threaded bolts here and here, and then all I'm going to do now is I'm going to tighten them down, so that, but don't over tighten them, because what will happen is you'll get resistance and your rudder won't work properly. So that's the next thing I'm going to do. Just whack these down just a little bit. Right, so rudder's on, and all I've done is I've got a little bit of foam, a little bit of Depron foam there. I've used a bit of card. I've clamped round the rudder, and I've clamped round the fin around the housing like so. That's so it's nice and square. Make sure that your servo arm is centered. I've checked mine, my servo arm is centered. Now all we're going to do is we've got the one bend there, and I'm going to measure up and then put an L-shaped bend in and just hold it in place with a little bit of heat shrink. So I'm just going to drop this in place now, and then I'll get back to you and show you what it looks like. Right, rudder connected. I've done mine the other side of the wire so it's not going to catch, and I didn't do the 90-degree bend with heat shrink. I've done right angle bend. And so the very final thing we need to do with the actual assembly is I think this might be Formula 1 inspired. I'm not quite sure of its purpose because obviously I'm not really a nautical man. But now, got to be careful putting this, because the idea is this fits here like so. But what you want to do is it wants to be slightly lower than this horizontal vane. The reason being is when it's switching backwards and forwards, if you go too high it's going to catch. So just make sure that you come up just enough so it's just below. See, if I show you there, look at that, look, that's just below. I might just drop mine down just a little bit more, but what I'm basically saying is you don't want it in line with that fin, because what will happen is they'll end up colliding and you won't get full rudder move. I'm just going to do this with medium cyno. I might just quickly tack it with a little bit of thin cyno, but we want medium cyno. I'm going to put some on the top, on the bottom, just add it very slowly. When that's done, we've got one last thing to do. You're most likely wondering what happens with this. This is a bump strip. And the idea is, you'll see how easy it goes on. So the idea is it pops on there like so, like so. Now, tell you what I'm going to do. That's how it goes. That's your bump strip. I'm going to use medium cyno, but I tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to get myself a little bit of masking tape, and just a bit at the front and a bit at both sides, and I'm just going to tack it with a little bit of quick going cyno, thin cyno, and then I'm going to add a little bit of thicker cyno just to give it some extra strength. But that's what it's going to look like. That's your bump strip. Right, there we go. One Gator Airboat finished. So I got my gear installed and I have just sealed. Now I've used a hot glue gun just in the end. A little bit of a caution. If you've had your glue gun on for about 20 hours, be very careful, because the end of the nib could burn the actual 3D printing. So I would suggest, just as it's just about to ooze out, I packed a load in, licked my finger and then pushed it all in place. So I've sealed there, and I've also sealed where the NiCad, the LiPo leads come out from the speed controller. So there she is. Obviously made sure that I didn't get the fin catching on the cross brace, and fingers clear. So just remember, whenever you're switching any plane, any float plane, Gator, transmitter on first. Make sure that your throttle is off and then connect the plane. Oh, she's got some juice. Obviously that won't be the sort of power from my granddaughters. So remember, switching off, switch your aircraft or boat off first. So we switch that off first, then switch your transmitter off. Right, I'm off to the local lake to see if I can harass some seagulls. So, the Gator from Angelwingdesigns. Check it out on their website. I hope not. Right, here we go. The Gator. Stand back so I'm out the way of the... I've got a bit of a turn in it. Yeah. That's quite good. Yeah. Isn't it? Right, we'll go down here. Let's see what full power does. It's a nice little speed. It's not wanting to flip up when you no. At full speed. It didn't want to upturn. Unlock yet. Oh, got risky there, didn't I? Going in the weeds.